couple weeks have looked like for this team. The Bears at this point in time, I kind of foresee this team being a team that we're going to look at as an improvement over last year in a number of ways. And I'm hopeful that I'm very hopeful that this team's going to give itself a chance to win 10, 11 games, make the playoffs, and then challenge the playoffs this year. I think that we've got pieces coming together that will give us a chance better than the last few years, and I think we've got the coaching staff evidenced from the first couple of games that has shown a willingness to go out and make victories happen, even at times when it may otherwise seem like that opportunity wasn't there. So, I'm very upbeat about this team. I'm very, positive, and I think that they have a good chance to put their mark in the season with the new acquisitions that they've made, both through the draft and through free agency, but mostly through the draft. And I think that we've seen the impact of them in the first 2 weeks. So the first point I want to make is about the offensive line. The offensive line for the Bears at this point in time has not looked this good for, 4, maybe 5 seasons, in my opinion. And a lot of that has to do with the rookies. We've got to give the rookies proper respect that they deserve. At this point, they're playing very, very well on the right side, both in pass protection and in run blocking. And to come in fresh out of college, won a first-round pick, yes, but this is a guy who I believe only played offensive line for not even a full season. I could be wrong, but from what I understand, he started late in college playing football from the get-go because he was a baseball pitcher, despite being a long. Understood he's got the pedigree, but and then was initially put on the defensive line because, of course, that's where his dad Howie and his brother Chris play. Moved to offensive line and started learning the position in a very up-tempo, complex offense in Oregon with Chip Kelly. Obviously, became an important player there. And, to have come in and matured, and he didn't even have a full training camp. Keep in mind, because of the graduation setup there, he was away from the team for a good part of camp. So, he obviously was doing his homework at that time, but he can only do so much by video conference and by, trying to read the playbook. So I got to give him a lot of credit for what he's done so far. Not a ton of glaring mistakes on his behalf, as far as what I've seen. But bigger than him in impact so far and exceeding expectation has been Jordan Mills. Jordan Mills has just been a revelation. A 5th-round pick who, some projected to be as high as a 2nd round, but he obviously felt slighted, I think, coming out of the draft in terms of the position that he was taken. And he has played exceedingly well. I remember when he was drafted, the comments he made afterwards may have seemed overconfident to some. He said he envisions being on that right side of the line with Bush on the left, with Bushrod there, starting and playing as starters for the season. And by God, if that kid, hasn't willed that to happen. Obviously, he hasn't had a ton of competition. He's had, and I'm, to be honest, one of the ones that's happy that we have seen, I don't even want to mention him by name, but, he's now with Minnesota, funny enough as it is, but we've seen Jamarcus Webb finally kicked out of the rotation. He was never going to be a long-term piece of the puzzle. He didn't have the heart and desire. Clearly that came through. Jordan Mills has that endlessly, it seems. And the kid is just doing a great job. He's just stable and solid over there, and he's doing his job. From what I've watched and from what I've seen, other opinions that have been posted so far from other Bears fans that are very in the know, he's just picked things up very well. He's been an incredibly good study. He's got, like I say, so much heart and desire to want to be out there, and that's such an important thing. So obviously he's got enough of physical ability to make it happen too, and he's doing a great job on the right side. Very happy with what he's done. Again, on both sides, pass protection and the run game. So I see positive things for them very much so. The more older statesman on the left that we also acquired Bushrod seems to be doing quite nicely. I mean, the one area where he can get beat, we saw this past week against Minnesota. Jared Allen is quick. He's always been quick. And I don't know if Bushrod wasn't ready for it, but I think that's one place where he is a bit susceptible. While he's generally going to be very sound with the system, he knows the system. It's Cromer. He's been in that system for a number of years, essentially, in terms of what are probably the line calls and the schemes, and no problems there. But it's in the pure athleticism, I think, and in making sure that some of the up-tempo, speedy pass rushers don't cause issues, because Jared Allen caused some issues, especially coming around the edge. He got outside, caused problems for Cutler. Cutler was kind of, you felt he was looking over his shoulder a bit now and then, and had to step up in the pocket too much, had to try and hurry a few throws. And with Bushrod, you generally take more good than bad from Bushrod, for sure, but so I'm not worried about him. I think he's going to be great over there. And Slosson's been solid. I can't say as I've seen a ton of individual plays where Slosson has made a major impact, but again, for offensive linemen, that's probably a good thing, because it means not a lot of screw-ups. So, overall with the line, I want to say that I was extraordinarily impressed in Game 1, especially with new system, whole new roster of players, with where they were at. I was extraordinarily impressed with all that. But last week there were a few more gaps. I think the Vikings, especially Jared Allen, and just a little bit more athleticism. It seemed like, I think playing Cincinnati, obviously they're good up front. They've gotten pressure on teams. We didn't allow a sack, which was outstanding. But they're bigger. They're just a generally more sizable line, and I think that seemed to match up well with soundness and technique and skill that our line played with week 1. Seeing speedy edge rushers like Jared Allen, that's what seemed to be a bit more of a weakness for us this past week. I'm very interested and concerned at the same time what happens when we play the Packers. Clearly, they're going to come with speed off the edge, especially with Clay Matthews. So time will tell. We have some weeks to get ready for them. I think we actually play them after a bye week. I don't think we play them until week 9, if I'm not mistaken, and we have our bye in week 8, so that's good. We'll have time to prepare. I look at this team right now, and I see a defense that seems to be playing right now. It doesn't seem to be quite as in sync as I've seen the defense on that side of the ball to flip over to the other side. I don't know if there's some injuries that we're not being told about right now, or if we're just kind of in a feeling out process with a new coordinator. If Mel, is getting the guys with a few new calls and whatnot. Everything was supposed to stay the same. That's what we were told, but something's got to change. There's got to be a few differences, right? So I'm not sure if there's a bit going on there too. There's been no stopping in the turnover game, that's for sure, and that's been very welcome. And they've come at some very good times as well. I know they've stopped both Minnesota and Cincinnati when it seemed like they were building momentum. We got critical turnovers at critical times. The pickoff from Tim Jennings last week was a monster pickoff. That guy just seems to have a nose for the ball. He reminds me so much watching, for a number of years and seeing a number of Patriot games and then Falcons games, and Asante Samuel. He's got so much of that character in him. He's a ball hawk. He wants to go up and get it when it's in the air, and he's sniffing for opportunities to jump routes, and you can see that. Tillman's outstanding. Unfortunately, in week 1, he got beat a few times by what is possibly one of the most outstanding and athletic wide receivers in the entire league right now. AJ Green is monstrous, but of course he also made it count as well in his skill set in generating fumbles. Just Tillman never stops. He seems almost ageless at times. Obviously at some point he's going to start slowing down, and we're gonna miss his input. But right now he's still playing at a high level. So it's not the corners. What's been a bit of a concern is the pass rush. We haven't been generating what we thought was going to be a much improved pass rush off the edge. We were hearing all these great things in preseason and in camp, and we had Shane McClellan was going to rotate with Corey Wooten off of the left side, and they were both going to have great opportunity. It looked like McClellan was maturing some and starting to generate a bit more of a repertoire of moves off the edge. And Wooten was looking like he could have a breakout season and be coming into his own, much like Melton did last year. And then we had Melton back, and Melton, was Pro Bowl quality last year. Well, Melton's looked slow. Peppers, on the other side, has looked injured at times. Some people have said that. Briggs came out this week and said, I'm not worried about Julius Peppers. If there's one thing I'm not worried about, it's Julius Peppers. Well, it's nice to say that, but actions speak a lot louder than words. And right now, I haven't seen him not only not register many sacks, but not even register a ton in the way of pressures. So, anyhow, I'm kind of right now in a hold my breath mode with this defensive line. I don't know where they stand, and I'm a little concerned about where they're at there. In terms of safety play, it's been solid. Major Wright went with an injury at one point in the game there. I think he probably had a stinger, but managed to come back in. But a position that coming into camp last year was such a question for the Bears. The safety play has been just really nice and stable between Conti and Major Wright. It's something you don't have to worry about week in, week out. They're going to pretty much be in place most of the time where they're supposed to be. Major Wright's going to make some good hits at times too, and cause players to think twice about going over the middle. So that's not to worry about. And finally, in the linebackers, there's been definitely some important overhaul there. At middle linebacker, we've had James Anderson. Now, I've seen he's been one of the more polarizing players that I've seen when I've looked at analysis from other Bears fans in the know, and that is generally like this, and I would tend to agree. His pass coverage has looked outstanding when he's had to pick up either a tight end or even a wide receiver sometimes across the middle. He seems to have been just brilliant at it for a linebacker, for a man his size. He sticks with his guy very, very well. It makes it tough to get the ball in, and has even deflected a few passes, I believe. But where he's had issues, at least he certainly did against a big offensive running team in Cincinnati week 1. I think it was less exposed this time, and that was getting trucked or getting totally taken out of plays by offensive linemen, just manhandled out of the rushing lanes. So not filling his gaps very well as a result of just being overpowered. So that would be the downside so far, I think. And some people have called for John Bostic to be in there. I don't think John Bostic's the answer right now necessarily. I think you put him out there, and I think there's a much more sizable chance that major mistakes are made, and just total blown assignments and things like that, which can kill a game. Really can. Yeah, he might make a big hit and jar the ball loose too at some point, but right now the way the defense is playing, you still got so much talent there. Do you need to be taking that risk? Do you need to be dialing it up? Probably not. And the other thing I'm going to say for Anderson, in his benefit is, if I had to choose which, my middle linebacker in this defensive scheme was lesser at, tackling or coverage, I would choose tackling. I would choose, stepping in and being able to make the play on it. Because, it's a team that is generally done very well against the run. It's a passing league. You lose generally in the NFL today because you have issues with great passers that kill you. So that's generally going to be a priority. And finally, sitting right next to him is still one of the best premier tacklers in the entire NFL, in Lance Briggs. And with Lance Briggs, the nice part about Briggs, I'll just make a quick statement about him. You lose very little, fortunately, without Urlacher there in terms of leadership and in terms of being able to make the calls and run the defense, fortunately. Briggs is, he's been so underrated for so many years. I kind of think it's nice that we have him to fall back on, and it's a great luxury to have as a Bears defense and as Bears fans to be able to watch him. He's putting a cap on a wonderful career in these last few years. We're going to see him now, so I just wish him the best, and I think he's going to continue to just be a dominant tackler for us in the middle of the field. So I'm always surprised at how much speed he still has too. I always think, he's big, he's a great tackler, but he's going to slow down at some point. I haven't seen a lick of that. He seems just as quick, as nimble as ever. So, so glad to see him making plays on the field just continually and now leading that defense. So on the defensive side, like I say, overall, things should be in good hands there. Some cause for concern at how the Vikings were able to move the ball last week. I wasn't surprised to see the Bengals be able to move the ball in week 1. The Bengals are going to be really good, like really good. They're just, that offense has a lot of weapons. So I'm not too worried about what we gave up against them at times. We made plays when it counted in that game. I was more concerned about Minnesota and how they were able to move the ball. So even without Peterson even having a monster day, that's usually been our downfall against the Vikings. So I'm gonna hold judgment right now a bit on the defense and say, if there's a group of players that can get it together and start performing at an extremely high level, it's those guys. They've done it many years and they know how to do it. So, but back on the offensive side, some of the things that we've seen since Mark Trestman has installed his offense so far has been the true hallmark of spreading the ball more. So Cutler has become, fortunately and very importantly, less Marshall-centric in his pass plays and in where he's looking on the field. I think Cutler's progressions this year, his ability to go through the progressions, has been outstanding. We're starting to see what he's truly made of there and what his true talents are. And I think there's 2 reasons for that we did versus why we didn't see that in the past few years. Number 1, the plays and the way that they're built from Trestman versus like a Tice or even Martz, they're built for the quarterback to really go through those progressions, and it's intended that way. And it's almost like instantly you're told. I'm not that I'm there in the meetings, but I'm fairly certain that Trestman's informing Cutler that if the first read isn't there instantly, go to the next read, go to the next read, go to the next read. Get moving until you find somebody. And if you can't find it by that 4th or 5th read, whichever they're set up for the play, you better start looking for a place to evacuate. But I'm pretty sure that the play calls are meant to have those reads in them very strictly. And then the other part of the equation is protection. Quite simply, protection. Where he's felt like he's had to, run for his life every play that he drops back there, especially dropping back in those 7-step draws, which, with Mike Martz, which was insane because, let's be honest, there's no way that he was going to have enough time to do that. He's not doing those deep drops. He's got much more protection, better offensive line play clearly in front of him. He's got more confidence in them. So he knows he can get enough time to go through a couple progressions without having to worry. So he's truly showing the skills to be able to do that, though, and make better calls. He's still Jay at times. Don't get me wrong. He's still Jay at times. He's still going to try and force balls into places that he shouldn't go. Or he still will try and force one to Marshall now and then just because he's so good and he wants to take chances with him downfield. And, that's going to be Jay sometimes. And as long as it happens at the right times of the game and they continue to give themselves chances to win like they have, I'm okay with that. That's not going to kill us. And you got to know who you're doing it against, too, what kind of team you're doing it against as well, though. So I'm very pleased with how Jay's adjusted to this offense. It's a lot, I think, to digest. I don't think Trestman's offense is by any means simple to understand. I think it's very complex, and he's done just a great job, and I'm very happy to see how he's done that. I think Forte, I think we still need to see. I'm still kind of on the edge looking for when Matt Forte is going to really be used to his maximum capability in this offense, and I think it's built in for him to really succeed, but we haven't had enough yet out of that to make me think that it's there, because he hasn't had one of those really monster breakout weeks. I think it's going to come, though. I think it's just a matter of time, because in a West Coast style like this, there's going to be a lot of swing passes and a lot of plays built for forte to get the ball in space and make plays. And so that's exactly the kind of runner he is. He just outstanding outside of the pocket with sneaky straight line speed. And, he's played well. I think he's had a lot of good runs, positive runs. Definitely kept defenses honest so far through these first 2 weeks. So it's not that he hasn't had an important presence there, but like I say, we still haven't seen that monstrous game from him, and I think we're on the borderline of seeing that any day now. To the receivers, I can only say that Marshall has been himself, despite there being a little bit of, I don't know if you all heard there that there was a little weird, maybe conflict with the team around his hip, and how he was saying that he wasn't getting enough concern or enough, I don't know what it was, or if he just didn't feel like the team wasn't treating his hip as a real injury anymore, his recovery from that, and how it was still bothering him, and how he ended up taking like 4 days off near the end of training camp there for what was called personal reasons at the time, but it was really to see a hip specialist, and we were told afterwards that it was a scheduled visit, and it appears to be that way. It doesn't appear like he was going to get anything fixed or anything, because he stepped on the field the first 2 weeks and played outstanding. He has been himself, and he has been great. He has just made plays and made tough catches in traffic, and he's made even, catches on double moves, speeding past corners, and he's done it all again. He hasn't had to do as much, fortunately, and that's a good thing. But he's been himself. Brandon Marshall is a beast. He's amazing, and you can always count on him for a big play when you need it, and I know Cutler will count on him for big plays further into the season. So, very pleased with his play. The other receivers, I can't say I'm excited about what they've done so far. I think about Alshon Jeffrey at first, and he's made some plays, made some nice catches, but I feel like he could have done more at times. I feel like he still doesn't have that connection with Cutler that we need him, we want him to have, and in making, that Cutler can find Marshall and back shoulder it to him almost at will. Marshall's going to read his mind when he throws that ball, and he's going to say, oh, I know this is coming back shoulder, I'm going to stop my route and get ready to get up and high point this thing. That's not the feeling you get from Alshon Jeffrey right now. It feels like he's still blindly running routes at times, and he's not on the same page with Cutler entirely. He's obviously a great athlete. He obviously has a chance to have a breakout season right now, and it could still be there. He was injured for part of last year. He's adjusting to the new offense too, so that could take time. And he's still only a second-year player, but the breakout will come in the latter part of this year. It happens a lot of times with second-year receivers where it takes them more time to mature through the season, and he could surprise us all and make big plays. So I'm not, concerned about him either yet, but I'm not overly encouraged either. I have not seen enough really of him making big plays yet. Earl Bennett, he's a guy right now. I haven't seen a darn thing from him. He doesn't get many balls thrown his way. I think he had one in the first week. I don't know what he had last week, but Earl Bennett's a guy who maybe, he's not a terrible third receiver, but he's not going to light the world on fire, so there's not much to say there. Marcus Wilson, I don't think, is dressed a 7th-round pick with upside. You got Eric Weems as a backup and slash special teams guy. I don't think he's done much, but outside of the receivers who I should talk about in the past game, who has been a revelation in the first couple of weeks, who's made a real impact, crucial touchdowns, a lot of great catches so far. Martellus Bennett, the black unicorn, he's such a breath of fresh air after Kellen Davis last year, isn't he? I mean, it feels like those times a bit when we had Greg Olsen, and Greg Olsen, Greg Olsen was a pure pass catcher, of course, really. Martellus Bennett known as a good blocker as well, but in the pass game, he has more than held his weight so far. He's made some very good catches, and he actually seems to have that kind of chemistry with Cutler and head fast. I don't know if it's because I know he was doing a lot of work in the offseason himself. I know he was really gearing up. He spent a lot of time with Marshall, his pal, and so I don't know if they've had some mind meld sessions and spent a lot of time with Jay together, but He's been great. He's made a lot of great plays. So I'm just very excited about him and what he's done so far and what he can continue to do for this team. And I'm hopeful that Martellus Bennett will continue to provide a reassuring outlet in the middle of the field for Cutler. So I can't say enough about how good he's played so far. And I think if there was after Cutler, he would be the offensive MVP, in my opinion, to name a single player. Because it's tough to name. I can't name the entire offensive line thus far. And I don't think they were worthy of it last week. There was some hiccups there. There was some, there was a fair bit of pressure on Cutler. But Martellus Bennett, MVP in the sense of, for him, Marshall's going to be Marshall. It's going to be great, but exceeding expectation. And that's been a breath of fresh air, I think, even beyond the improvement we knew was going to come from him over Kellen Davis. So I really appreciate having him on the field as well. And, as far as, I want to just quickly, before we close off here, because I'm running out of time, I want to talk about the coaching staff. And, I think Trestman, depending on the type of fan you are, you may not like Mark Trestman. He doesn't have a lot of bluster. He's not a tough guy. He looks like he'd be more comfortable as an accountant sitting in the back office somewhere processing payroll checks. But you can tell that there's a certain desire and a certain will to win within that guy. And you can also tell that he's smart. Like, he gets the game inside out, especially from the offensive side of the ball. And you hear from all these other people who've worked with him. Rich Gannon was one of the first being very vocal, but it's very clear that the guy knows what he's talking about. And he understands angles, and he understands getting players open, and he understands how to block for success, have the line structured to block in certain plays and certain pass situations for the most success for the quarterback. He knows how to set them up for the win. And the great part that we've seen so far, because it was a bit of a question mark, I think, it wasn't going to be a question that he was going to be good with quarterbacks, or that he was going to understand offensive systems, that he was going to be able to restructure the offensive line for some success, because we saw a history of that at different places, be it in the NFL with teams like the Raiders and Rich Gannon, and before that with the 49ers. But that was there. And then in the CFL, we heard about how he took an offensive line that was last in the league to, second or first, and quarterback with the Alouettes put up tons of yards and record levels of yards there. So we knew that was in his resume and very possible. What we didn't know was at this level, at the NFL level, was he going to be a great play caller in game? Was he going to have what it took to be a coach that could make the right calls in game? Because it's a stressful situation. Some of the best coaches who've been around a long time aren't good in-game managers. They're poor at it. They're not good at making calls that put their team in places to win. And they flub even things like when to call timeouts. Definitely they're not very good at coaching up their quarterbacks, through the communication system. I think Trestman has that in spades. I think he's just a calm hand at the wheel, but he also, don't take his calmness or the look, what he is, as a person, as being, again, short on that heart and that desire to want to win. He's got that in spades, and he knows that sometimes in the NFL, you got to take chances and you got to take your shots, and he's willing to do that, I think. And we saw that. We've seen that 2 weeks in a row now. We've seen that, and he's let Cutler rip it, gave him a chance to win the game, and fortunately he delivered. And I think Cutler, he's really enjoying it. There's a certain chemistry there. I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops going forward, and I'm really excited about where they could take it as they move forward. So next up, we go to Pittsburgh. Obviously, they're playing tonight. They're going to be on a short week. They get to stay at home, though, so we'll see. But Pittsburgh is a team on the downslide right now. They still have a great defense. Great defense. But if there's a chance for our defense to take advantage, it's now. Well, enjoy tonight's game. We'll chat with you soon. And, of course, bear down.